then you have your power, ground, power, ground. So you're going to want to go ahead and desolder those, take those off. Depending on how well you can, you might be able to go ahead and once again twist a wire up, and there is going to be a hole once you take those out, so you might be able to go ahead and, depending on what size wire you use, stick the wire through and solder it through the top, making a great connection. Now you don't need to worry about these anchor points. They're useless for what we're going to do. Extension port 1. This is your charging port. Now I found this one to be the most fragile out of both of the extension ports there. It is very easy to tear the leads up from right here when you're soldering. So make sure, once again, you don't want to get it hot, but not hot enough that it just pulls the lead out from the board too. You got 6 soldering points there. Once you go ahead and do that, you have 2 anchor points, 1 and 2. You're going to want to desolder those and take the anchor points off, and at that point you'll be able to go ahead and work with that right there. And once again, just solder back to the point 1 to point 1, point 2 to point 2, and that way you'll have a free floating extension port. Now for extension port 2, I found this easier working from the bottom. Once again, you got 2 anchor points. So we got anchor point 1, anchor point 2, and then you have the 6 pins. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you're going to want to desolder every single one of those pins, and then once you do that, pop this off, and then that guy, super simple. Once again, this one's messed up. I messed this one up, so don't pay attention to it, but it's simple. You pull that off, and then once again, just route the lines to the correct area. And once again, this is just soldering everything at this point is the hardest part, getting everything off the board and back onto it. Once you do this, so I mean, essentially the board is blank. It's not going to have anything on it. It's not going to have stuff sticking up. This will be gone. But yeah, we're going to get into the next portion here. Talk about a little bit about the inside of the case, and then also the battery cover, and how we're going to go ahead and use the native SP battery to go ahead and still power this unit. Okay, so what I've done so that I can use the native SP battery, so I went ahead and used a Dremel tool, and I cut this portion right there out of the actual plastic encasing in the housing, so that what we got here, this little section right here where this hole is, you see here I got this put in here with the wires coming out. This was the power acceptor right there. This is what drew the power from the battery into the motherboard. It was soldered onto it, and it essentially it sits like this inside of the casing. So I went ahead and soldered the power in the ground, put wires on them, and then I went ahead and used this hot glue to keep it in place, and actually it's really stable, and I plan on using this exact one on my next project too. But that, all you would want to do is, once you have it inside the casing, which I'll show you later, you're just going to want to go ahead and mount it to the, you're going to want to just mount it to the power and ground lines right there. So once again, you have the pins 1 and 2, so kind of just want to match it up. So here's if it was sitting the same, so pin 1, and then ground goes to pin 2, and then that's how that works. Now we're getting into the hard part, and it's honestly just modifying the case. Once again, this is a shell that I messed up on. I didn't really like how I had everything laid out. I went ahead and mounted different tactile switches through the screw holes. Ended up making it harder to actually put back together. Like I said, I did put the 16 32-pin flip switch right there, which I ended up mounting inside the case later on, next to the cartridge reader, by taking out this little piece of plastic right in here and fitting it next to it flush. Kind of in there. So once again, just for example, so it would fit right next to it flush inside that plastic. There's not much you have to do on the back casing. You will take out a couple posts and plastic right around the bottom next to the cartridge reader. Other than that, not much here other than the battery cover. So open this up, took out a huge portion of that chunk, made the battery fit in better. So once again, it kind of has the sliding motion, so it will fit right through here. I can get it to work. There we go. Fit right in there. The wires will come out the side right here, and you can, once again, they'll be easy to go ahead and mount to the motherboard. On this one that I completed, if you look at the back here, I'll show you. I went ahead and once again drilled the 2 holes for the tactile. So let's talk about case modifications. When it comes down to the case, the back of the case, we're obviously going to have to remove a lot of plastic here if you want to fit your Game Boy Advance games, as well as from the sides. So if you take a look here, on the completed version, once again, I don't have that huge hole there, but shaved it down just enough to fit the Game Boy Advance games in all the way through. So it turned out quite nicely. Another thing, once again, you're gonna have to do, I'll show you on here too, changed it up when I did this one, but the battery sits in here, and what you're gonna want to do is cut a hole through the side of the Game Boy. You'll see it pops out right here of the Game Boy battery case. Cut a hole through the side because it needs to fit through there, and then you're gonna get your ground and power right from here. It's gonna lead up right to the motherboard when you go ahead and sit it in. And this is how I have my motherboard actually seated inside of it. So ground and power come right there to those pins. So once again, I did everything for case management. I wanted to make sure that everything did fit back inside the case. So as far as that goes, go ahead and put this back. Okay. So as far as plastic, you're gonna need to remove, like I said, on the completed version of this, I got the cart slot reader in there. You can see I removed some posts that you'll notice when you go in there to remove some of the posts that are there. But you're gonna want to go ahead and once again cut out that plastic to go ahead and mount this 16 32-pin switch right next to the cartridge reader, so that it'll actually read the difference between Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. So you can cut here, cut along in there. Other than that, there's not really much cutting other than trimming out the plastic right here and then inside the battery case and on the back. Now the front is where, I'm going to move this here, we have some things. So the front, as you can tell, just like that, I completely removed most of the plastic off of it just to make sure that my SP screen did fit in there properly. Once again, so I'll show you the widescreen. So cut that out, fit the SP screen in, and then I went ahead and I used a Dremel and I traced around. I held them together and I used a Dremel. I just went around the SP screen with it until it actually matched the original Game Boy screen lens and fit in there. So, but once again, took out most of the plastic on the front right here in the screen. You see some leftover glue from how I had the screen mounted in. So essentially the screen's gonna mount right here like that, and then you're gonna have your buttons and everything else right here, so it all still fits the same. Let's go ahead, let's get into the buttons and attaching the buttons to the motherboard now. So essentially, when you're getting